Price is a story, but not all stories are true. 90% of retail traders lose money chasing breakouts, jumping at every green candle, panicking at every red one. But what if I told you they're all watching shadows? Every tick on your chart, every candle that forms, they're nothing more than surface-level signals. And if you've ever stared at those signals, trying to decipher whether that green bar means breakout or bull trap, you know how deceiving they can be, because price alone is just a shadow. The truth, it lives beneath. It lives in volume. And the most honest voice of that volume is VWAP. Welcome to Trading Psychology Stick, where we decode the invisible forces that move markets. Everything I share comes from years of watching institutional flow, not theory. Use it wisely, test it thoroughly, and remember, this is education, not financial advice. VWAP, Volume Weighted Average Price, is not just a line on your screen. It's the average price that traders have actually paid, weighted by volume, not time. Most indicators simply divide by time. They average prices over a set number of candles. But VWAP doesn't care about candles. It cares about weight, about conviction. A candle where 5,000 orders were placed matters more than one where only 50 trickled through. VWAP listens to the heavy footprints. It filters out the noise and hears only the thunder. And that thunder? That's where smart money lives. Let me tell you a tale that still makes me laugh. Two traders entered long at $20. One watched the MACD crossover. Classic retail move, right? The other, the VWAP. The first jumps in, price spikes, and then dumps. Panic. Stop loss. Regret. The guy literally messages me later saying the market hates me personally. The second, he waits. He watches price come back to VWAP, tests it, holds. He enters with calm precision, no panic, no regret, just alignment. Because he wasn't chasing momentum, he was aligning with volume's memory. You see, VWAP isn't reactive, it's reflective. It shows you where the average participant committed their capital, not where price looked good, but where real money said, yes. And here's what most people don't realize. Institutions, the real movers of markets, use VWAP to hide. They slice large orders into micro-executions, trickling into the market without causing disruption. VWAP becomes their cloak. And if you learn to track it, you learn to track them. Think about this, and I want you to really pause here. Have you ever entered a trade on a breakout, only for price to retrace and mock you? Comment below with the exact dollar amount you lost on your worst FOMO trade. I'll wait. What if, instead of chasing candles, you anchored yourself to where the real money actually was? What if you stopped looking for movement and started looking for memory? Because VWAP is memory, and memory doesn't lie. But this is only the beginning. Because as powerful as VWAP is, the real mastery begins when you stop following it and start anchoring it. When you decide where the memory starts and bend time to your advantage, that's where institutional flow doesn't just hide, it speaks. And in the next chapter, I'll show you exactly how to listen. There are moments in the market that change everything. A macro news event, a trend reversal, a sudden shift in sentiment. You've seen them. That one candle that makes your jaw drop. That Fed announcement that sends everything vertical. That earnings miss that creates a crater in the chart. And yet, a week later, everyone seems to forget. But not the smart money, and certainly not VWAP. Because VWAP can be anchored, locked into that exact moment, freezing the collective memory of the market at a specific point in time. And when you anchor VWAP with intention, you're no longer reacting to the market. You're shaping how you read it. Anchored VWAP is simple in theory, but devastatingly powerful in practice. It allows you to select any candle, the beginning of the day, a major news release, a swing low, and tell VWAP, start calculating from here. From that moment forward, you're no longer guessing where value is. You're watching it evolve from a meaningful origin. You're saying, this is where the game changed, and I want to track every dollar that came after. Let me show you why this matters with a story that changed how I trade forever. Central bank announces a surprise rate hike. The market jolts. A giant green candle breaks across the chart like a thunderclap. Price surges, but the move is so fast, you miss the entry. I remember sitting there, coffee in hand, watching my perfect setup disappear in seconds. A few days pass. The hype dies down. Price begins to drift and then revisits the zone where that breakout began. But something strange happens. It bounces. Hard. No news, no catalyst, just a sudden snap. That's anchored VWAP in action. It's the market's long-term memory. You see, while retail forgot, institutional orders didn't, because they were triggered by that news. And when price returned to their cost basis, anchored by VWAP, they reloaded. Quick mental exercise. Take 10 seconds right now and think about the last major market event you remember. Fed meeting, earnings, CPI data. That moment is still alive in the market's memory, waiting to be anchored. If you're watching this months from now, find your market's last shock moment and anchor VWAP there. Watch what happens when price returns. Anchored VWAP gives you a portal into the psychology of professionals. It's not just about marking points. It's about identifying when beliefs shifted and tracking how far from that belief the market has moved. Think of it like setting a GPS coordinate in a storm. No matter how far the boat drifts, you always know where the anchor lies, where stability was first defined. Some of the best places to anchor? The start of the day. That first candle of the session defines early sentiment, or the swing low after a major dump, that pivot where buyers first fought back. You can also anchor to earnings candles, macroeconomic releases, or even gaps. Each anchor tells a different story, but the language is the same: volume, context, conviction. This is how professionals structure trades. They don't draw trend lines hoping for magic. They use data, weighted, volume-sensitive data, and track its evolution from moments that matter. And as price returns to these anchored VWAP lines, you'll often see explosive reactions, because the memory of money is real, and anchored VWAP makes that memory visible. Now pause and ask yourself, have you been drawing lines based on hope or based on history? What would change if you stopped trading patterns and started trading memory points? Because when you master anchoring, you stop chasing the present, you start shaping it. But anchoring only tells you where. What about how far? What if price hasn't touched VWAP in days? How do you know if it's safe to enter or already overextended? That's where deviations come in, the rubber band of the market. And in the next chapter, I'll show you how the market stretches, snaps, and how you can ride the tension like a pro. Imagine holding a rubber band between two fingers. You stretch it slowly. At first there's resistance, but manageable. You keep pulling. It stretches further. Still no snap. But eventually, you feel it. That taut, trembling moment right before it breaks. Every trader knows this feeling. You've been in a position that's stretched too far, and you can feel the reversal coming. That's how the market moves. And VWAP deviations show you exactly how far the rubber band has stretched before it snaps back. Most traders look at price like a destination. It's going to 100. It's dropping to support. But professionals treat it like a distance. How far has price moved away from the fair value? Has it gone too far? Is it due to return? Deviations are the measure of that distance. Technically, they're calculated like standard deviations from VWAP. The further the price moves from VWAP, the more statistically extreme it becomes. But this isn't a math class. This is about reading market psychology. Because when price drifts too far from where volume says fair, institutional traders prepare to fade. Let me take you inside a real moment that still gives me chills. CPI data drops. S&P 500 rockets upward, slicing through the second deviation from VWAP like a knife. Retail traders cheer, they pile in. Twitter explodes with rocket emojis. I kid you not, my Discord was going insane. But one trader, silent, watches as the second deviation flattens. Volume begins to slow, no follow-through. That's not strength, that's exhaustion. He shorts. Everyone else is buying the breakout. He's fading the stretch. And minutes later, price collapses, straight back to VWAP. The rubber band snaps. Not because of a headline, but because gravity never disappeared. Here's your mini breathe and reflect moment. Close your eyes for 5 seconds and visualize a rubber band stretched to its limit. Feel that tension. That's exactly what extreme deviations feel like in real time. Can you sense it? VWAP deviations help you answer the one question no one dares ask. Is this move real or just stretched? In a ranging market, price oscillates between VWAP and its first or second deviations like a heartbeat. Up, down, fade, bounce. But in a trending market, VWAP deviations slope. They lean. They become guides for continuation. That's how you distinguish trend from trap. But here's the twist. It's not just about direction, it's about timing. If you know price is at a second deviation and volume is dying, you can prepare. If price hits a first deviation in a trend and bounces off, you trail the trade. You're not guessing anymore. You're reading elasticity. You're trading tension, because every candle is a stretch, every tick is a tug. And eventually, the market must revert to its mean or break completely. VWAP is that mean. Deviations are the limits. And your job is not to predict direction, but to read when price has gone too far. Have you ever bought high, only to watch the market collapse minutes later? Drop a deviation in the comments if you've been trapped at an extreme level before. I know I have, more times than I'd like to admit. What if it wasn't a mistake, just bad timing? What if you knew the stretch point before it broke? Because that's what VWAP deviations offer. A map of where pressure builds and where opportunity explodes. But what if you could go one level deeper? What if VWAP alone isn't enough, and you could stack it with volume profile, price action, and more? In the next chapter, I'll show you how to combine multiple forces into one sniper-level confluence, so you stop hoping and start aligning. Section 4. The power of confluence, where worlds collide. There's a moment, rare, quiet, electric, when everything lines up. Price action pauses at a key level. Volume clusters beneath the surface. And VWAP, it's right there too, like a shadow waiting to be acknowledged. This isn't coincidence, it's confluence. And in trading, confluence is power. Most traders rely on a single tool, a candlestick pattern, a moving average, maybe VWAP alone. But professionals, they wait for alignment. They don't pull the trigger on impulse. They wait for the chart to whisper yes from every angle. Because one signal is noise, 2 is a hint, but 3, that's a symphony. And VWAP is the conductor. Let's step into a scene that happened just last month. EURG USD. 15-minute chart. Price drops into a demand zone that's been tested twice. At the same time, the daily VWAP is right there, sloping gently into the level. You switch to volume profile and see a high volume node hugging that zone like a magnet. I literally got goosebumps when I saw this setup. That's not luck, that's layered conviction. You enter, no hesitation, because you're not guessing. You're standing in the middle of a battlefield, and every weapon points in the same direction. Time for a quick reality check. How many indicators do you have on your chart right now? If it's more than 5, you're probably confusing confluence with chaos. True confluence is about quality, not quantity. VWAP tells you where average value lives. Volume profile shows you where traders care. Price action reveals their psychology. When all three align, you're not trading setups, you're trading certainty. Confluence is not about stacking indicators. It's about stacking truths, and each one filters out noise. When a level lines up across different dimensions of the market, time, volume, psychology, it becomes magnetic. But most retail traders, they get seduced by speed. They jump at the first breakout. They trust a wick instead of waiting for weight. That's why they fail. Because confluence takes patience. It's not about more charts or tools. It's about discipline. You wait for VWAP to meet structure. You watch volume dry or spike. You enter where they collide, not where they tease. There's something deeply psychological here, and I learned this the hard way after years of overtrading. Humans are wired to believe in patterns. Our brain loves stories, but the market doesn't care about your story. It responds to pressure, volume, and memory. And when VWAP, volume profile, and price all agree, it's not a story. It's a signal. Have you ever forced a trade just because it looked right? What if, from now on, you only acted when the market confirmed it across multiple realities? Drop a comment saying, confluence, if you're ready to wait for the real setups, not the pretty ones. Because waiting for confluence isn't just about better entries. It's about protecting your capital from impulsive decisions and building unshakable confidence in your execution. But even with perfect confluence, timing matters. Too early and you're front-running institutions. Too late and you're catching crumbs. So, the question is, when exactly do you strike? In the next chapter, I'll show you the secret to precision entries and how to enter like a scalpel, not a hammer. The market rewards patience, but it punishes hesitation. You can identify the level, watch the setup form, see the confluence align, but if your entry is off by just 1 second, 1 candle, 1 impulse, everything falls apart. The sniper misses, the trap springs early, and suddenly your perfect trade becomes another lesson in regret. That's why mastering how you enter is just as critical as where and why. Most traders enter too early, driven by fear of missing out, or too late, paralyzed by fear of being wrong. I used to be both, sometimes in the same day. But when you combine VWAP with confirmation tools, entries become natural, seamless, unemotional. You're not hoping it works. You're watching it prove itself before you commit. And that proof? It's found in how price behaves when it returns to memory. Imagine price returning to anchored VWAP. The line curves into your level, Confluence is present, volume thins, then the candle prints a doji. Indecision. Next bar, bullish engulfing. You check the order book, buyers stacking, sellers retreating. That's your trigger. That's the moment. You enter not because it feels good, but because the market tells you to. Here's where I want you to get honest with yourself. Think about your last 5 trades. How many were entered with clear confirmation versus it felt right? If you're like most traders, the answer might sting a little. And that's okay. Awareness is the first step to mastery. Comment 1. Trade below if you're willing to commit to taking only confirmed setups for the next week. Confirmation is about context. It could be a specific candle pattern, like a rejection wick after a second deviation touch, or a footprint chart showing aggressive absorption. It might be volume drying up right at VWAP, followed by a surge in one direction. Confirmation is not a checklist. It's a conversation. You're listening, not predicting. You're letting the market speak and acting only when its voice becomes clear. And when you wait for confirmation, something else happens. Your psychology calms. You're no longer fighting against emotion. You're aligned with process. This is where trading transforms from reaction to response, from stress to structure. Let's make it tangible. BTC USD hits second deviation above VWAP after a parabolic run. You mark the level, you wait. Price tags it, but no reaction, no confirmation, you wait again. It starts to build a flag. Then, a sharp rejection with high sell volume, you enter short. Not at the top, but at the moment of alignment. That one difference, it keeps your stop tight, your confidence high, your outcome consistent. Ask yourself, how many times have you jumped into trades out of hope or fear? What would change if every entry you took came only after proof? No guessing, no chasing, just confirmation. Because when you combine VWAP memory with price action response, you stop forcing trades. You let them come to you. But even with the perfect entry, you still face the next trap. How do you exit like a professional? How do you stop taking profits too early or holding losers too long? That's the war of every trader's mind. And in the next chapter, I'll show you the institutional approach to stop loss and take profit, so you can win even when you're wrong. Section 6, Exit Strategy. Winning even when you're wrong. A good trade isn't just about getting in. It's about knowing when to get out, with your profits protected or your losses minimized before they spiral. And this is where most traders quietly bleed. They exit too early, terrified of giving profits back. Or they exit too late, clinging to hope while the market punishes indecision. The irony? Most of them had the right idea, but the wrong exit. Professionals treat exits like equations, not emotions. They don't ask, what do I feel like doing here? They ask, what does the market structure allow me to do here? And when you integrate VWAP into your exit strategy, you're not guessing where price might go. You're estimating its gravitational limits. Let's break it down with brutal honesty. Price enters near anchored VWAP. Confluence confirmed. You go long, now what? First, identify your invalidation, the point where your idea is clearly wrong. Is it a break below VWAP with high volume rejection? That's your stop loss. It's not arbitrary. It's where the market proves your thesis is dead. Anything above that, you're still in the game. I learned this lesson the expensive way. Lost 30% of my account in 1 month because I kept moving my stops based on feelings. Never again. Structure saved my career. Now for take profit. You don't just aim for some random R to R ratio. You look at where price has historically reacted. The first deviation, maybe a conservative exit. Second deviation, potential extension, but only if volume supports the move. VWAP creates a map of tension. Your TP lives where that tension releases. If you ride price up to a stretch deviation and see momentum stall, that's your cue. Get out while others still hesitate. This method keeps your decisions tied to logic, not fear. You're no longer watching your P and L flicker like a slot machine. You're acting based on flow. And when you follow flow, even your losses shrink. Why? Because you're cutting when the idea is invalid, not when your ego panics. Let's watch it play out. Imagine you take a short at second deviation above VWAP in a ranging environment. Your stop, just above that deviation. Your fading stretch, not chasing breakout. Your TP near VWAP, you're betting price reverts. Trade hits target, clean, no stress, no what ifs, just execution. Pause for 10 seconds. Seriously, stop reading. Think about your worst exit, the one that still haunts you. Was it emotional or structural? If you had clear rules based on VWAP levels, would the outcome have been different? Share your worst exit story in the comments, but more importantly, share what you learned from it. We all have these scars, but they're what make us better traders. The beauty of this structure is that it removes the guessing. And once you start seeing the market through VWAP's tension points, you can define exit zones before you even enter the trade. That's professional mindset. That's strategic detachment. But more than anything, clear exits give you one thing traders crave most: peace. You're not stuck refreshing your phone at midnight, wondering if your trade will reverse. You've already made your decisions and let the market do its job. So now you know how to enter with confirmation and exit with clarity. But there's still one layer most traders ignore, the layer within. Because even with perfect entries and exits, if your mindset is fragile, your account won't survive the storm. In the next chapter, we go inside, into the psychology of a VWAP trader, and how to think like the smart money you're finally trading beside. There comes a moment in every trader's journey when they realize the market isn't their enemy. It's their mirror. Every hesitation, every overtrade, every exit too soon or hold too long, it doesn't come from the chart. It comes from within. And mastering VWAP isn't just about technicals. It's about psychology. Because VWAP doesn't just reflect price. It reflects your relationship to time, pressure, and uncertainty. Think about what VWAP represents. It's not reactive. It's not impulsive. It doesn't jump at every candle. It waits. It listens. It watches where the weight is. VWAP is stoic, unmoved by noise. You want to trade with VWAP? Then become like VWAP. This hit me during a particularly rough patch. I was taking 20 trades a day, all losers. My friend, a fund manager, watched me trade for an hour and said something I'll never forget. You're not trading the market. You're trading your anxiety. That night, I deleted everything except VWAP from my charts. The silence was deafening, but in that silence, I finally heard the market. This mindset begins with detachment. You stop chasing tops and bottoms. You stop entering on impulse just because it's moving. You wait for price to return to balance, for Confluence to appear, for confirmation to speak. That patience, it's not weakness, it's precision. You're not reacting anymore, you're responding. VWAP traders understand something most retail traders never learn. You don't need to catch every move, just the ones that matter. While others are glued to the screen, jumping on breakouts that fade within minutes, you're quiet. You wait. And when price returns to memory, you strike. Not out of emotion, but alignment. Here's a mindset challenge that will change your trading forever. For the next 5 trading days, take only 1 trade per day. Just one. And it must touch VWAP with Confluence. Comment 1 shot, if you're brave enough to try this. Most won't. But those who do will discover something profound about patience. You'll realize that less truly is more, and that waiting for the perfect setup beats taking 10 mediocre ones. This psychological shift changes everything. Your entries become cleaner, your exits more disciplined, but more importantly, your identity changes. You no longer feel like prey in a chaotic ocean. You become the current itself. You understand flow. You act with calm. You lose with clarity. You win with detachment. Let me be clear. This isn't about being robotic. It's about being rooted. VWAP gives you a reference point, and that reference becomes your internal anchor. Every decision ties back to something real, something logical. And when losses happen, as they always will, you don't spiral. You re-anchor. You ask, was my entry aligned with volume? Did I wait for confirmation? Was my exit based on structure? If the answer is yes, you take the loss with pride. That's the VWAP mindset. Have you ever felt like the market is moving against you? Like you're always one step late, one candle wrong, one emotion too loud? What if that wasn't the market but your lack of anchor? VWAP teaches you that trading is not about speed. It's about gravity. return to center, return to value, return to calm. Because at the end of the day, you don't trade charts, you trade belief, you trade patience, you trade yourself. And VWAP, it's the mirror that shows who's really in control, your fear or your system. But there's another layer we haven't explored yet. What happens when your mind becomes your biggest enemy? When emotional loops trap you in patterns of self-sabotage. In the next chapter, I'll show you how VWAP becomes more than a tool. It becomes a loop breaker for your worst trading habits. Section 8. Trading in the Zone. The VWAP Loop. You've studied the charts. You've mapped the levels. You've waited for Confluence, entered with confirmation, and exited with logic. But there's still a ghost whispering behind your trades, a voice that says, "What if this time is different?" That ghost is not the market. It's you. And until you confront it, no indicator, not even VWAP, will save you. Because trading isn't just a game of price, it's a mirror of your mind. And VWAP, when used correctly, becomes more than a technical tool. It becomes a loop breaker for your worst habits. Let's be honest, how many times have you entered too early because you couldn't stand missing out? Or exited too soon because your P and L turned green and fear whispered, "Take it before it disappears." Or worse, moved your stop, widened your loss, and told yourself, "It'll come back." These aren't mistakes, they're loops. Emotional cycles driven by cortisol, dopamine, and ego, not strategy. But what if you could anchor more than price? What if you could anchor your mind? VWAP gives you that chance. Because unlike other indicators that change every bar, VWAP reflects something deeper. Conviction over time. When you trade with VWAP, you no longer react to flickers. You align with weight. It slows you down, forces you to wait, invites you to become still. You're no longer trading what could happen. You're trading what has already happened and where memory lives. Let me take you inside a trader's mind before and after the shift. Before VWAP. Price is breaking out. I'll enter now, just in case. After VWAP. Price is stretched beyond deviation. Volume is drying. Anchored VWAP sits beneath. I'll wait for the return. Before VWAPs. Green candle. Get in. After VWAP. Where did real money last commit? Is this move sustainable or reactive? That's the psychological evolution. You go from prey to presence. You become the observer, not the emotional participant. Here's an exercise that will reveal your loops instantly. Write down your last 10 losing trades. Next to each one, write the emotion you felt when entering. Fear, greed, revenge. Now look for patterns. Are you always chasing? Always early? Always moving stops? These patterns are your loops. And VWAP helps you break them by forcing you to wait for objective signals, not emotional triggers. Try this tonight and comment, "Loop broken," when you discover your pattern. And the real transformation? You stop needing to win every trade. You start needing to follow your process. Because now you understand that your self-worth isn't tied to P and L, it's tied to discipline. And every trade becomes a test, not of the market, but of your ability to stay aligned with your edge. VWAP, then, is not just a tool on your chart. It's a tether, a reminder, a real-time feedback loop that shows you, are you swimming with the current or against it? Every time you chase price far from VWAP, you're drifting from the center. Every time you align entries with anchored VWAP and wait for confirmation, you're returning home. Ask yourself, how would your trading change if your default wasn't urgency, but wait and see? If you trusted tension to build before you act? That's the VWAP mindset. That's the zone. Because when your execution merges with your edge, and your edge merges with your psychology, that's when trading becomes effortless. And the best part? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to return to center, to clarity, to VWAP. In the next chapter, I'll take you even deeper into how institutions automate this process and how you can start thinking like the algorithms that use VWAP every second of every day. Section 9. Think like an algorithm. VWAP through machine eyes. Imagine this. It's 9:31 a.m. on Wall Street. A single institutional order comes in. $45 million worth of AAPL to be filled by 11 a.m. The goal? Not to move the market, not to be noticed. Just fill the order quietly. So what do? They don't use RSI. They don't wait for a head and shoulders pattern. They load a VWAP algorithm and disappear into the flow. Because to institutions, VWAP isn't a line. It's a strategy, a stealth tactic, a way to blend their presence into the crowd without leaving a footprint. And if you want to stop being hunted by algos, you need to start thinking like one. Let's break it down. An algorithm executing a VWAP strategy slices the large order into micro trades. It spaces them across time intervals. If volume increases, the algo executes more. If volume dries, it pauses. It's not emotional. It doesn't care about support or news. It reacts only to volume-weighted opportunity. It doesn't chase, it waits for reversion. Here's what most retail traders don't realize. When you buy during a breakout, you may be buying from that algo. When you sell in panic, you might be filling its buy order at discount. The algo uses VWAP to disguise itself, to manipulate time and volume so well, you never even see it coming. But here's the twist. You don't need $45 million to benefit from this thinking. You just need to mirror the behavior. Enter where they enter, near VWAP. Fade where they fade, at deviations. Wait where they wait during volume pauses. The difference? They have automation. You have awareness. You can even simulate it manually. Set alerts at your anchored VWAP lines. Add deviation bands. Use a time filter. No trades until first 15 minutes settle. Use volume filters. Enter only if cumulative delta aligns. Your process becomes predictable. Your execution becomes robotic. And your edge becomes scalable. Here's a practical algo mindset exercise. Tomorrow, pretend you're a VWAP algorithm with these rules. Only trade within 30% of VWAP. Only enter after volume confirms direction. Maximum 2 trades per session. Exit at next deviation or VWAP touch. No exceptions, no emotions, just rules. Comment algo mode if you're ready to trade like a machine for one day. But even deeper, trading like an algo detaches you from ego. It kills the urge to predict. You no longer think, will this work? You think, does this fit the rules? You begin to trust repetition over intuition. You realize that the best traders are boring, ruthlessly consistent, emotionally numb. This is the ultimate evolution, from instinct to system, from emotion to automation, from noise to structure. Because the algos are not smarter than you, they're just more consistent. And if you can combine human intuition with algorithmic structure, you become dangerous. So next time you stare at a chart and feel that pull, that itch to jump in early, to grab the candle before it runs, ask yourself, would a $100 million VWAP bot click right here? If the answer is no, then neither should you. In the next chapter, I'll show you the trade that changed everything for me. The moment when all these concepts, memory, structure, timing, mindset, came together in one perfect execution, and how that single trade rewired my entire approach to markets. It was a Tuesday, quiet, uneventful, no news, no headlines. The kind of day most traders get bored and force trades they shouldn't. I had already promised myself I wouldn't touch the market. I told myself, only if it's perfect, only if everything lines up. Then, it happened. I noticed BTC was approaching a level I'd marked days ago, anchored VWAP from a massive breakdown, the kind that leaves a scar on the chart. Price had climbed steadily all morning. Volume was rising. But something was off. It wasn't impulsive. It was controlled. Like someone was slowly walking it up, feeding it just enough momentum to reach a point. That point, my VWAP anchor. Right there, second deviation, confluence with volume profile, and a single sharp rejection wick that pierced the level and snapped back. I stared at the chart, my mouse hovered. No excitement, no rush, just breath. I whispered to myself, this is it. This is the trade. I entered short with calm precision. Stop loss, just above the deviation. Take profit, back at VWAP. Price danced for 5 minutes, a small rally. Another rejection, then the slide. Smooth, relentless. Gravity took over. Price returned to VWAP with surgical precision. My take profit hit, clean, stress-free, one trade, done for the day. But it wasn't the money that changed me. It was the emotion I didn't feel. No panic, no second guessing. Just clarity, alignment. The kind of execution that feels like you're watching the trade, not forcing it. That was the day I realized. This is how institutions feel every day. Detached, deliberate, dangerous. And the truth hit me hard. I had spent years chasing signals, setups, gurus, when the answer had always been under the surface. VWAP wasn't just a tool, it was a philosophy, an invitation to slow down, to look beneath the surface, to trade like the river, not like the fish frantically swimming against it. Since that day, everything has changed. I don't trade every move. I wait for the return. I don't fight volatility. I anchor myself inside it. And most importantly, I don't look at price the same way anymore, because now I see memory, I see gravity, I see flow. This story isn't unique to me. Every professional trader has their moment, the trade where everything clicks, where years of struggle suddenly make sense. What will yours be? Comment below with ready if you feel that breakthrough trade approaching. Because it's not about the money you'll make, it's about the trader you'll become. And you can too. That's what this video was really about. Not just VWAP, but vision. Seeing the invisible rhythm, feeling the structure behind chaos, realizing that you don't need to outsmart the market, just understand where the current is moving and let it carry you. So, remember this. The smartest traders aren't the fastest, flashiest, or loudest. They're the ones who listen, the ones who wait, the ones who enter. Not because they're certain, but because the evidence whispers, now. This was the trade that rewired everything for me, and maybe, just maybe, this was the video that will do the same for you. But the journey doesn't end with one perfect trade. It begins there. In the final chapter, I'll show you how to take everything you've learned, memory, structure, timing, mindset, and turn it into a daily ritual. A repeatable, scalable system that transforms chaos into calm. Most traders wake up in hope. They check Twitter, scan headlines, stare at charts, and when a candle spikes, they chase it like moths to a flame. Some win, most lose. And none of it feels stable, because without structure, trading becomes a casino. But what if your trading day began not with anxiety, but with a ritual? A calm, focused process that aligned your mind, your method, and your momentum every single time. This is where VWAP becomes more than a tool. It becomes your daily meditation. It starts before the market opens. You review the macro context, not to predict, but to feel the emotional tone of the day. Is there uncertainty, anticipation, fear? Then you move to your charts. You anchor VWAP to yesterday's high-impact moment. Maybe an earnings candle, a trend break, or a demand zone flip. You draw your deviation bands, mark Confluence zones with volume profile. You're not rushing, you're preparing the riverbed. Then you write a plan, one trade, maybe two, not 10. You define, if price returns to VWAP with volume drying, I'll look for confirmation long. If price hits second deviation against structure, I'll fade with tight stop. These are not guesses, they're vows, rituals, anchors. As the market opens, you don't touch the mouse. You watch. The first 15 minutes are noise. You let price breathe. Let institutions show their hand. Maybe it runs, maybe it fades. You don't care. You're waiting for your scenario, your moment, that familiar rhythm when price, volume, and memory all echo in harmony. And when it comes, you strike. Once, decisively. Not because you're excited, but because the ritual said yes. Your stop is predefined, your exit structured, your psychology still, focused. You're not here to hunt, you're here to listen. Here's my personal ritual that changed everything. Every morning, I write 3 things. What is the market's memory? Meaning, where is anchored VWAP from the last major move? Where is the tension? Meaning, which deviation levels are in play? What is my edge today? Meaning, what specific setup am I waiting for? This takes 5 minutes, but saves hours of confusion. Try it tomorrow and tell me how it changes your focus. This process, repeated day after day, rewires your identity. You're no longer gambling, you're practicing, you're becoming. You wake up not to chase, but to return, to VWAP, to discipline, to center. And at the end of the day, you journal, not about profit, but about process. Did I wait for confirmation? Did I trade my plan or my emotions? Did I respect the current or fight the tide? Because in this game, mastery isn't built from breakthroughs. It's built from rituals. Tiny acts of alignment repeated until they become who you are. VWAP is not magic. It's memory, it's structure, it's flow. And when you combine it with a process that honors patience, precision, and psychology, you don't just survive the market, you merge with it. This is your invitation to stop waking up in chaos, to stop trading like everyone else, and to begin a new ritual, one that rewires not just your trades, but your self-trust. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be the one chasing the market. You were meant to become the current. Your turn to step into the current. If you've made it this far, something inside you already shifted. You're no longer just watching charts. You're reading memory. You're no longer chasing price. You're anchoring to intention. You've just learned what most traders never even hear whispered in the forums, never see printed in books, never get from the so-called mentors screaming about breakouts and FOMO. Let's recap what you now hold. You learned that price is not truth, VWAP is. You discovered how to anchor to turning points where institutions leave footprints. You saw how deviations show tension, how Confluence creates conviction, and how confirmation removes doubt. You stepped into a new mindset, one rooted in calm, structure, and clarity. You learned to break emotional loops and think like the algorithms. And you witnessed a real trade, not for the money it made, but the transformation it created. But here's what I want you to do now. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, now. Go to your charts, turn off the noise, remove the indicators you don't truly understand, add VWAP, anchor it to a significant moment. Watch how price reacts around it. Don't trade yet. Just watch. Listen. Let the current reveal itself to you. And then, come back here, in the comments. Tell me, what did you see that you never noticed before? Was there a level that bounced perfectly? A zone that rejected twice? Did you feel the market's memory for the first time? If you're serious about transformation, not just information, I want you to commit to something specific. For the next 7 days, journal every VWAP touch on your main trading pair. Note the time, the deviation level, what happened next. Don't trade it, just observe it. Then come back and share your biggest discovery. The traders who do this always message me weeks later with breakthrough stories. They say things like, I finally see the rhythm, or I can't unsee the patterns now. That's the transformation I want for you. Drop a yes below if you felt the current for the first time. Say, one trade. If you're ready to take only high conviction, VWAP setups, type ritual. If you're committed to building a daily practice around this approach. Because this isn't just about one video. This is a movement, a new wave of traders who are done guessing, done chasing, done with the noise. If that's you, I want you to be part of this community. Subscribe, but not for content. Subscribe to commitment, to being the trader who sees what others don't, to trading from the inside out. And if you want more, if you want deeper breakdowns, live examples and frameworks like this applied to real markets, say deep dive in the comments. We're building something here, and I want you in before the rest catch on. Someone still trapped in the chaos, someone ready to find their flow. Because the best trades aren't taken alone. They're shared with those walking the same path. Because the truth is, you were never late. You were just swimming upstream. But now you see the river. Now you are the current, and that changes everything.